Well, good morning, everyone. See, have you ever noticed that sometimes the gospel can be a little bit confusing? And maybe it's just me, but I think that gospel passage that we just heard kind of falls under that category. I mean, Jesus in this passage gives us a new commandment. Love one another. Well, I'm confused because I don't know what is new about love. Even 2,000 years ago when Jesus first spoke these words, the commandment to love one another was well established. I mean, you have probably heard, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Does that sound familiar to you? Yeah, you know where that is in the Bible? That is in the book of Leviticus, chapter 19, verse 18, if you want to fact check me. Leviticus predates Jesus by well over 1,000 years. So it doesn't sound like Jesus is really breaking any new ground here. But to see what is new, we have to continue reading a little bit. Because Jesus goes on to say, as I have loved you, so you also should love one another. And so the old commandment is to love as we love ourselves. The new commandment is to love as Jesus loves. Is there a difference? Well, let's see. How do we love ourselves? Well, self-love is really kind of a love of self-preservation. And it means that I'm going to care for myself so that no harm will come to me. So if I love my neighbor as myself, I'm going to do no harm to my neighbor. Now that's a good thing, to do no harm. It's kind of the foundation of a fraternal love. But how does Jesus love? The love of Jesus is self-sacrificial. Jesus always puts the needs of others ahead of his own needs, to the point of sacrificing his life for us. So I guess that is kind of a new way to look at it. And it's kind of a high bar. Honestly, when I think about it, maybe it's just me, but if I think about all the people I know, there aren't that many people that I would say, I love that person so much that I would willingly give my life for them without hesitation. My wife, for sure, yes, I would. My 2 sons, yes. My siblings, well, most of them, yes, I would give my life for them willingly. But that's kind of it. Honestly, I mean, thank God I have never been in a position to make that actual decision. So I don't really know, but hypothetically I know, right? I am not eager to give my life. But history is filled with examples of people who have done just that, have sacrificed their life for others. St. Maximilian Kolbe comes to mind. St. Maximilian was a priest in Poland during the Second World War. And in 1941, he was arrested by the Nazis and sent to the concentration camp at Auschwitz. And later that same year, after a prisoner in Maximilian's barracks escaped, the commander of the barracks singled out 10 men to be sentenced to death by starvation in punishment for the escape. They didn't have anything to do with the escape. And St. Maximilian was not among the men who were selected for this, but he volunteered to take the place of one of those men whose wife had become distraught. His wife and children had become distraught because their husband, their father, had been sentenced to death. Maximilian willingly sacrificed his life so that this other man could live. Now, St. Maximilian is one of my favorite saints. I ask his intercession almost every day. But honestly, I don't know if I could follow that example of self-sacrificing love. But the good news is that self-sacrificing love does not begin with sacrificing your life. I mean, yes, that is the ultimate sacrifice, but it's not the only sacrifice. So we don't have to give our lives as Jesus did, as St. Maximilian did. In fact, most people are not called to that level of sacrifice. But self-sacrifice can be anything in which you put the needs of others ahead of your own needs. Acts of service, for example. I mean, if we look in the gospel at where this new commandment is, it's right after Jesus washes the feet of his disciples. So Jesus does this act of service for his disciples, washing their feet, and then he gives them this new commandment: love as I have loved. It's not a coincidence that those two things are right together. Because when Jesus tells us, love one another as I have loved you, the most common way we can do that is through acts of service. And so I invite you to kind of reflect on that new commandment, to love as Jesus loves. Do you love self-sacrificially? Do you always put the needs of others ahead of your own needs? Or do you tend towards more self-preservation, towards fraternal love? Kind of look out for number one. This week, for your homework, resolve to do at least one act of service each day for an individual or for a group. And it can be simple, maybe at home, right? I mean, if you're the person who doesn't normally wash the dishes or do the laundry or clean the bathroom, maybe volunteer for that task. Or just in traffic, let somebody in front of you. I never like to do that. I don't want to be the one in front. Let someone in front. Or at the grocery store, let someone in front in the line. Or it could be something a little bigger. Maybe here at St. Leo's, on Thursdays we have our community marketplace. Maybe volunteer a few hours on Thursday to help those in need in our community. However we do it, through every act of service, when we put the needs of others ahead of our own, we are following that new commandment to love as Jesus loves.